everyone. Welcome to our webinar on polysaccharide in winemaking. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you are all staying safe at home and keeping busy watching all our webinars. Yep. My name is Eglantine Chauffour. I will be your speaker today. I'm the winemaking product manager for Bucher, Vaslin, North America, representing La Motabier in North America. So before we talk more about polysaccharide, let me introduce you the two partners for this webinar. Bucher Vaslin is a designer, manufacturer, and seller of material for grape and wine processing since 1856, so pretty well known. It's present all around the world. In North America, we actually are partnering with other brands to offer a complete solution to winemakers. So we are offering bottling line from Costral. We are offering Caso wine pumps. We have the Alien robotic sorting table, and we have La Motabier winemaking product. La Motabier winemaking products are a renowned enological product from Bordeaux, founded in 1878. So it's more than 140 years of history and experience. We are focusing on quality and premium product. It's 2 years we are present in USA, in North America, sorry, and we are based in Santa Rosa. We have everything in stock there. So please, if there is anything you are interested in after this webinar, feel free to contact me. We can ship anywhere in North America. Okay, so now let's talk about polysaccharide. So polysaccharide in wine are a diverse group of macromolecules. They are present in between 100 to 600 milligrams per liter in wine. As their name suggests, they are made up mostly of sugar, more than 20 units, and they are the highest molecular weight compounds that we find in wine. Just to give you an idea, they can be up to 100 times bigger than tannin, the average molecular weight tannin we find in wine. They have many applications in winemaking. So polysaccharides are widely known for their stabilizing effect. They can stabilize color, tartrate, and protein. They are called protective colloids, but they also can react with tannins and reduce their stringency perception. They react with other compounds in the wine matrix, but also with our salivary protein, which reduce the perception of heat or hotness, and also increase volume, viscosity, and sweetness sensation. So as you can see, polysaccharides are pretty multitask. They can do everything, but obviously not every polysaccharide do every single effect. So they are different sources. Grapes, to start, grapes are rich in pectin, and pectin are polysaccharides that we find in wine. Then yeast. Yeast monoprotein are the second most abundant polysaccharide found in wine. And then we can have polysaccharide coming from wood. When you age your wine in barrel, in oak barrel, or if you use oak chips or oak tannins, you will sometimes feel that it actually increases volume and viscosity of the wine, or even sweetness. This is because there are polysaccharides in the wood that are extractable. The other additive that we can use in wine is Arabic gum or carboxymethyl cellulose. So Arabic gum is used to stabilize color and also for mouthfeel. Carboxymethyl cellulose or CMC is known for its ability to stabilize tartrate. Last polysaccharide is coming from fungi. It is coming from botrytis, in fact, and it is a glucan. We don't really want this polysaccharide in wine as it causes problem with filtration, but it could happen. Okay, so all these type of polysaccharide are not showing the same behavior with respect to wine. Their effect and properties will be different, and this will depend on their size, chemical composition, molecular structure, and also origin. As an enological point of view, polysaccharide from grapes and yeast are the most important, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So that's where we will focus on today. And as we always do to make wine, we are going to start with the grapes. grapes polysaccharide that we find in wine are pectins. As you can see on your screen, a pectin chain is a pretty complex chain of different molecules, but we can divide them into categories. We will have the first categories, which is homogalacturonan, a pretty basic compound. It is basically a chain of homogalacturonan, which are galacturonic acids, more or less methylated and acetylated. I'm not going to focus on this part because it's not really the most interesting first, but also it's not really the most dominant in grapes. Then the second family is rhamnogalacturonan, type 1 or 2. We are going to call them RG1 or RG2, but we are going to focus on the RG2, which is the majority of the rhamnogalacturonan in grapes. Last part is the polysaccharide rich in arabinose and galactose, which we are going to call PRAG. This is regrouping the arabinan and the arabinogalactan. I'm going to talk mostly about the arabinogalactan protein, which is the most present and also the one that has been the most studied. But basically, we will keep focusing on families. Okay, so these pectin chain are actually not all the same. They are going to vary, and especially the concentration of each group of families will vary depending the plant that we are talking about. So apple and grapes will be very different, and other fruits too, but also depending on varieties, maturation, vintage, and within the berry location. So a skin cells, for example, will be much richer in rhamnogalacturonan 2 or RG2, and the pulp of the flesh will be much more richer in PRAG and arabinogalactan protein, so AGP. And as you can see, they have different size and composition. We compare these two compounds, which means that they will have different properties. Here, I'm making a summary of literature on the effect of AGPs and RG2 in winemaking. So both of these polysaccharides are acting as protective colloids. They have a strong protective colloid effect, which means that they will participate to protein, tartrate, and color stabilization. They do interact with tannins via hydrophobic interaction and hydrogen bond, which means a pretty weak bond, but still there is a bond there, and there is true interaction, which allowed to reduce tannin self-aggregation, but also allowed to reduce the tannin interaction with other compounds, such as salivary proteins. So we are able to reduce astringency. And these two compounds are also known to participate to viscosity and reduce the heat, the hot perception found in some wine due to ethanol. The AGPs are pretty big molecules. They can be from 50 to 100 kilodalton. They show a good effect on preventing protein haze on white and rosés. They can increase foam stability in sparkling wine. I'm talking about stability, which means foam retention. So it has a strong effect in retaining the bubbles in sparkling wine. Then the negative part of the AGPs is that it is affecting the filtration, settling, and clarification. So usually any PRAG or AGPs is not really wanted in wine because we can't clarify and we can't filter the wine when there is a too high concentration. They are easily extractable. They are present in the pulp and in the flesh at high concentration. The RG2s or rhamnogalacturonan 2, so molecules that are much smaller, from 5 to 10 kilodalton, they don't impact the filtration process at all. They are very stable through time. Forgot to say that the AGPs are actually not stable through time. They can be hydrolyzed and they are, their concentration reduce, their molecular weight reduce, and their concentration reduce during with aging. So the RG2 are actually stable in time in the wine. They are present in the skin, so much harder to extract. We will have to work on extraction, and they show very good effect on inhibiting tartrate crystallization, and so potassium bitartrate crystals, but also calcium tartrate crystals. So they work on both way. So again, as I was telling you before, the concentration of these two compounds will depend on grape variety, terroir, maturity, vintage, but not only, it strongly depends on winemaking techniques, as there is much more RG2 in the skin and much more AGPs in the pulp. So let's see how we can extract these compounds. There is different techniques that exist to extract compounds from the skin. Crushing is one of them. Crushing will allow to physically break the grape berry cell walls, which is going to cause a depectinization and will help the release of the cell wall polysaccharide. Not only this, but it will also extract more compounds from the skin, so the tannins I'm talking mainly, but also from the seeds. And crushing can promote oxidation. So it is, you have to know the pros and cons before deciding which technique to go to. Low temperature technique has been studied as well, and they show pretty good results in degrading the cell walls and achieving greater extraction of polysaccharides. Cold soak is usually not cold enough to actually promote the degradation of the cell walls, so cold soak show no effect. But cryo extractions or the use of dry ice that really freeze the cell walls and break them down help for the extraction of polysaccharide. If we stay in temperature playing with for extraction, let's talk about the other spectrum, which is a thermovinification, flash détente, or using the extractis, which helps you to increase the extraction of compounds. We accelerate the extraction of any skin compounds, which works for polysaccharide too, but we saw much better results when the must is fermented in contact of the pomace. Okay. Another tool that you can use that is very useful to have a targeted extraction is maceration enzyme. So Lamotabier designed two enzymes, a nosin crush red for red grapes, a nosin crush white for white grapes, that are really focusing on losing down the cell walls, allowing a better extraction. So an accelerated extraction, but also just a better extraction in general, without completely degrading and breaking down the cell wall, so without extracting too much and without making a complete mush of your grapes. Okay. The other thing that we can do is playing with fermentation temperature, skin contact, and cap management. They will have a strong impact on extraction of the skin compounds. As you know, they will have also an impact on extraction of the seeds compounds, and then they can have impact on fermentation kinetics and type of aromas you produce. It has been shown that above 18 Celsius, we do have a greater extraction of polysaccharides during fermentation. For red wines, obviously, there is no more skin for white. Extended maceration works too, since we extend the skin contact, we extend the extraction. And then the press cycle. Press cycle can, or press fraction, can be very interesting to play with, to really focus on extracting the skin compounds without degrading too much the skin and without increasing too much the turbidity and the oxidation. But basically, if you look at all these tools, some of them are more efficient than some others, but really the best way to increase the skin compound release without encouraging oxidation, without going onto the seeds extraction, is to use maceration enzymes. Lamotabier developed two enzymes designed for maceration. I insist on the fact that it's designed for maceration because if you use a clarification enzyme on grapes, you're going to create a mush. So you do want a pectinase that is designed for maceration, that will have much more side activities and more gentle activities on the cell walls, but still lose down the network of pectin and the cell walls to have a better extraction of the skin compounds. Our enzymes, so enzyme crush white and enzyme crush red, are liquid pectinase. They are highly purified. That's an important point too, because you don't want any cinnamyl esterase activity that might increase the precursors of volatile phenols, and you don't want any anthocyanide activity that might make your anthocyanide unstable and you will lose them. So our enzymes are purified of these two activities. They are highly concentrated. We use only 10 to 30 ml per ton, and we recommend to use them on grapes. Here are some results that we can get when we use enzymes, which I want to bring your attention to the RG2. We just talked about them. Very positive polysaccharide from grapes. We do want to extract them since they are from our grapes. And with enzyme, you can increase of 60% the amount of polysaccharide found in the final wine. Then we are reducing the Prague, which means that we are improving filtration and settling. We are increasing, obviously, the amount of tannin release in red wine because we are improving the release of skin compounds. So we are increasing the color intensity. The last point is that we are increasing the yield of qualitative juice or wine. That's very important because basically by losing down the cell walls, you allowed more juice to go through, and you allow more volume at a lower pressure, so more qualitative volume with the use of maceration enzyme. So increase skin compound extraction, aromatic precursors, polysaccharide and polyphenols, improve filtration and settling, and increase qualitative volume. So really, grape polysaccharides are very precious for winemaking. As you can see, they improve colloidal stability, they improve mouthfeel, they reduce astringency, they reduce aggressivity perception. We always talk about the other compounds of the skin. We always forget about the polysaccharide, but they really play an essential role in the final quality of the wine. But not all of them are positive. We do want to reduce the Prague or the AGPs because they will impact negatively, they will decrease the wine filtrability. So using commercial enzyme is one of the best tools. It is a great tool to selectively extract the positive compounds from the skin, from the grape skin. The next category I want to talk about is the yeast and the manoprotein coming from the yeast. They are the second most abundant class of polysaccharide found in wine. We estimate them around 35% of the total polysaccharides in red wine, ranging from 100 to 150 milligrams per liter. They come from the yeast membrane that get degraded during fermentation and aging. Manoprotein look like this. So there is great variation between manoprotein because the protein fraction can be from 1 to 10%. The size of the manoprotein can be from 50 to 500 kilodalton. The mannose content is above 90%, but can be 90, can be 99. So all these parameters will actually change the shape and the composition of the manoprotein, which will also impact how they are gonna, the electric charge of the manoprotein, which is usually negative, and how they are gonna react with other compounds in the wine. The yeast strains will impact this composition. The winemaking process during aging will impact this composition and how the yeast got developed. Okay, so different compositions, different size, different effect too. Let's go on literature. The first observation, which you probably all did it too, as Ribeiro-Gaillon did in 1933, that manoprotein acts as a stabilizing agent. You can see that when you age your wine for a longer time on lees, the wine is more stable, is more protein stable, is more tartrate stable, and is more color stable. And you probably also see so that it gives you a different mouthfeel. So you can obviously know that manoprotein will impact also the mouthfeel. So Manoprotein can show effect in stabilizing wine against protein haze by reducing the protein aggregate particle size. So they basically can react or interact with the protein, limiting the availability of the protein binding sites to bind together, so you limit the self-aggregation. Okay, so it's pretty simple as it works. The manoprotein, so this reaction will depend on the mannose glucose ratio of the manoprotein, as well as the pH and the ionic strength. Okay. Manoprotein are also known to inhibit crystallization of tartrate salt. So there is many studies that show this, and basically what happens is that the manoprotein is able to prevent the growth and the precipitation of the crystal. So usually has a very little effect on preventing the nucleation, but it does inhibit the growth of the crystals. Okay. So there is no more growth, no more formation of crystals, so no more precipitation of crystals. Manoprotein can interact with color by interact directly with phenolic compounds. So they act as a stabilizer of color. They also can reduce astringency by interacting directly with tannins. They can participate to roundness and volume, as you probably observe by tasting wines that are aging on lees. Manoprotein are supporting aromas, so they are actually affecting the volatility of aromas and the perception of the wine. So you can feel that when you add manoprotein in a wine, sometimes you really change the nose. That's maybe because you are changing the volatility of some aromas, but not all of them. But in reality, yeast derivatives can act almost as a fining agent and absorb some of aromas, or give some aromas, such as a yeasty or a toasty character that we can find in a sparkling wine aged on lees. Speaking about sparkling, manoprotein can improve foam stabilization in sparkling wine. So there is other effects than the aromas and the mouthfeel, but also will improve the retention of the bubbles. So again, not every manoprotein are equal in composition, size, and effect. And as you can see in this table that is coming from a thesis from Escott in 2002, is looking at 3 impacts of the manoprotein: astringency via the gelatin index, color stability via the PVPP index, and sweetness via the ethanol index. We are looking at 2 different manoprotein, and you can see compared to the control that both of them are reducing astringency, both of them are improving color stability, and both of them are increasing sweetness, but not at all at the same scale. So this said, basically, there is many studies that has been done on which fragment of manoprotein will be best for which application. And at La Montabier, we did a lot of work on this to really develop specific product for specific objective, so we best reach our goals. Okay, so we actually produce our own yeast derivatives, so it gives us best control on the production condition, so we can really focus on a specific type of manoprotein for specific objective. First one I want to introduce you is the Nature Soft. So Nature Soft is our yeast derivative that has been developed especially for color stabilization. It has a strong interaction with tannins, so it helps the color stabilization. As it reacts with tannins strongly, it also will balance the mouthfeel and help you having a rounder wine with a fuller wine. We use it during fermentation, towards mid-fermentation or end fermentation, 20 to 40 grams per hectoliters. Here some results on the color stabilization. We look at the delta NTU. As you can see in this graph, the control has a delta NTU that is much higher than the 2 others. Delta NTU represents how unstable is your color, and then when we are below 10, we are stable. So only the Nature Soft added during fermentation, and we are now analyzing the wine during aging, managed to put the wine at a color stable stage. So we pass from 3 NTU to 8 NTU, delta NTU with Nature Soft, which with concurrent competitor product, we managed to reduce this delta NTU, so to stabilize coloring matter, but not reaching complete stability. Okay, so that's an important point, very interesting to stabilize color, which is what we want with this product. Also, since it reacts with tannins, we are decreasing astringency, decreasing dryness, increasing sweetness and roundness. So as you can see here, we completely switch the organoleptic profile of the blue, which is a control, into the pink, that is a Nature Soft addition, and you can see that we reduced the negative compounds. Okay, the next manoprotein product I want to introduce you to is designed for tartrate and color stabilization, and it is our StabK. After many studies on which fragments of manoprotein has the most effect in stabilization, tartrate stabilization, we found out that they are the medium molecular weight manoprotein. So in 2010, we developed StabK, a liquid solution of manoprotein that has a high effect in stabilizing. It is filtrable, it can be added just pre-bottling. It works for white, rosé, and red. It doesn't have any side effects, such as it doesn't react with protein, and it's not gonna destabilize anything except stabilizing color and tartrate. And then the only side effect that you will get is that you're gonna get some of the sweetness and roundness in the palate. It's very slight because this manoprotein have already been selected for tartrate stabilization. So you can see here in the graph, when we are looking at Sauvignon Semillon, the control show tartrate crystal, while the one with StabK doesn't. When we are looking at a red wine, the control is showing tartrate crystal and coloring matter, while the StabK is not showing any crystal or any coloring matter. So basically, it does stabilize color and tartrate. I have samples with me, so I'm really happy to send you some. Please contact me after the webinar and I will send you samples of the StabK. We usually test it. The best test for this is to put to do a cold hold at -4°C for 6 days, and then you can measure if there is precipitation of tartrate and color or not. Okay, so just contact me and I will give you samples. The last manoprotein I want to talk about is designed for mouthfeel enhancement. So this solution or formulation based of manoprotein and Arabic gum is coming out from a study made from Axel Marshall that discovered in 2010 that the peptide HSP12 is responsible for the sweetness in the wine. So this peptide is produced by yeast in specific conditions, which are high temperature, oxidative stress, high ethanol, high glycerol. So basically, it could be present naturally in your wine, but usually we really understood which yeast strains and how to produce it in a higher quantity. Then we can extract it and we produce our formulation of Stabilisation, which is a liquid solution of manoprotein rich in HSP12 with some Arabic gum from Acacia Seya. This product is formulated to be added pre-bottling, pre or post filtration, as you want. I have kits, sample kits for you, so I'm happy to send you sample. You can really put few drops in your glass and taste right away, so you see what it can do to your wine. But what you will see is red or white, you will increase the smoothness of the wine, you will increase the volume and the length, and you balance some of the aftertaste, sometimes found in smoke affected wine. That this we can balance the ashy aftertaste, or some wine that can have some Brettanomyces taint. Stabilisation can help you balancing this aftertaste. But the best way is really to ask me a sample and to try in your wine, and you will see by yourself how it works. Okay, so as you can see, monoprotein is a pretty wide category of polysaccharide. They have many different effects, but really, like, the idea is to focus on which one does what, so we can focus on which effect we want. So you will have it naturally by aging your wine on lees, but then obviously if your lees are contaminated by any microbial, or if your lees are reductive, you don't want to age on them, you want to use clean lees or to replace by a commercial monoprotein focusing on some specific effect. Last category for the presentation is going to be to talk about Arabic gum. I told you this can be an additive. It's not naturally present in the wine, but it does come from plants. Arabic gum comes from acacia tree. There is two types of acacia trees, acacia verec or the acacia segal. They both come from North Africa. And the acacia verec will give you Arabic gum that is harder, that is known to for its stabilizing effect. So this Arabic gum will be used for colloidal protector, so inhibiting the precipitation of color. It is usually proposed in solution as it's pretty hard to mix, and also it is not always the most filtrable gum that you have to know. Then we have gum from acacia segal that are actually gums that are developed for mouthfeel. So this one are having an effect that is much more on the sweetness and on adding weight, roundness, and reducing astringency. So it's important for you to understand that there is different category of gum, and the effect of each gum will be depending their purity level, hydrolysis level, and origin, and this will change their properties, which are stabilizing properties, mouthfeel properties, and filtrability. So these three parameters will vary depending the gum, so you have to speak with your supplier to really understand which one does what. Okay, one little study that I want to show you here is an interesting study that where we compare different, not we actually, Benoit Faure compared different polysaccharides and their interaction with salivary protein and tannins. So in a normal time, why do we feel dryness and astringency? It's because our salivary protein, which is a P here, reacts with your tannins, which are the little T, form a complex that is insoluble and precipitate. So we are drying, we don't have any salivary protein anymore. Okay, how polysaccharide works, which are the C here, they can coat this complex and make it soluble, so we don't have this precipitation of salivary protein and we don't have this dryness sensation, or they have a stronger affinity with tannins, so there is a dissociation of this complex, and you will have a new complex form that is tannin polysaccharide that is soluble, leaving your salivary protein alone and doing the job that it has to do. So looking at this, he compared different polysaccharides that are in this table. There is two interesting effects in this table. So we look at the dissociation constant, which is how easy or how hard is it to dissociate the complex form, the complex tannin polysaccharide. If the number is low, it means it's very hard to dissociate it. So it is a very strong bond that is last for a long time. And if it's high, it's very easy to dissociate, so it's not a stable bond. The first interesting point here is that between with or without salivary protein, you can see that the number don't change so much, which means that if with glucose, pectin, or Arabic gum, we are in the same type of interaction, which are scenario number 2. Arabic gum works the same way than pectin or glucose with tannins. That's a very interesting point, because it means that if you didn't manage to extract so well your great polysaccharide, you can still have the same type of interaction using Arabic gum in your final wine. Okay, you will have complex tannin polysaccharide. Second point here is that you can see that the constant is much lower with Arabic gum, which means that Arabic gum has a stronger effect with tannins and require less concentration than the other compounds. So basically, Arabic gum is very efficient in stabilizing color and reducing astringency. It works as the same way than pectin and glucose, but it works much better, much lower concentration and for a longer time, long-lasting effect. So as a conclusion today, we talked about a lot of polysaccharides, but we talked about the great polysaccharides that are mainly two big categories: the AGPs, part of the PRAG, that are present in the flesh, so very easily extractable. They help with color stabilization, protein stabilization, and they participate to mouthfeel. But they also inhibit the settling, clarification, and they will make the wine not filtrable. So not very positive in winemaking. Then the rhamnogalacturonan 2, these compounds participate to mouthfeel, color stability, and tartrate stability, and they are present in the skin, so they do need extraction, but they are filtrable, much smaller molecule, much more stable and filtrable. So one of the best way to change this ratio and make sure we extract as much rhamnogalacturonan 2 as we can is to use a maceration enzyme, so anosine crush white or anosine crush red. We talked about monoprotein, and we talked how diverse this family of polysaccharides is. There is many different monoprotein that can exist with many different applications. The family is pretty multitask, since you can participate to color, tartrate, and protein stabilization plus mouthfeel balance, but not all the monoprotein are equal, and not all of them will do all the job. Obviously, you will have an effect naturally from your yeast and your aging on lees, but also you can intensify this effect or compensate if your lees are not good by adding nature soft during fermentation for color stabilization, Stab K pre-bottling for tartrate and color stabilization, and Sublicens for mouthfeel balance post-bottling. I have samples of this product, and I'm very happy to send them to you so you can taste it in your wine and you can see yourself the effect of it. The last point we talked about was focusing on Arabic gum, and the very interesting point here is to see how there is some similarity between grape polysaccharides, which are pectins, and Arabic gum, except that the Arabic gum is more filtrable. So there is maybe a compensation of lower grape polysaccharide that can be made with the addition of Arabic gum. Same thing. I have samples. I can send them some to you. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Here you have the list of the literature I used. I'm happy to send them to you. So feel free to ask me later because there is many of them. And there's many very interesting study out there on polysaccharides. But yeah, thank you very much for attention. You can find the recording on our YouTube channel. You can find them also on our website, bvnorthamerica.com/webinars. And feel free to email me any question you have at eglantine.chauffour@buchervaslin.com. Thank you.